Hello everyone. Today we have with us Miss Anukiran Khanna. She is from CT Global Education Services and Spinmark IELTS classes. She is founder CEO of Spinmark and a band expert in IELTS. Hello ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So let's talk about the most trending topic of the day, the most trending topics for students these days, which is IELTS preparation. So ma'am, my first question for the day is, how long does it take for a student to become ready for IELTS exam?
See, it's different for different students. We have an IELTS appraisal. It's not like an entrance test. After a student sits through the appraisal, we find out the English language skills of the student.
Okay.
Based on that, we guide them as to how long it will take for them to become ready for IELTS.
And what about these tests? Are these tests free?
Yes, the entrance test is absolutely free. It is a 15 minutes entrance test and the student can give it before or after the free demo class.
Okay, so you guys give demo classes also.
Yes, we give one free demo class. What we do is the student can sit in an IELTS classroom for one full day and attend all the 4 modules. We don't have a separate a demo class in which a person is attended to separately, because what happens is sometimes a demo class is taught differently and the way the syllabus is taught in the classroom is pretty different. So we don't believe with that. A student can come to a classroom and see real time how the modules are taught and what is taught in the classroom. It takes them about an hour and a half to figure out the difference in the classroom, but they're most welcome to sit through the day.
Okay. So when you say that your classes are different, your center is different, your orientation, your way of teaching is different, your methodology is different, why do you say that?
See, I'm an IELTS band expert, and recently IDP IELTS had also called me for an interview on how students can score a good band score in IELTS. And the interview is on their YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
I was trained by examiners in Ireland, England and Australia. They are IELTS examiners and they taught me how they set the examination and what they look for when they go to check a student's exam paper. So based on that knowledge which I gained over months of trainings, I designed the curriculum which is taught in all our classrooms, and the teaching is done through PowerPoint presentations. Okay. And we give detailed written notes to the students. So we handhold the student every step of the way. We've broken down all the modules into segments, and each segment is taught in class. To give you an example, a speaking test of IELTS is for about 15 minutes. And we have a 250 slide presentation which is done in class. And the student is given details about how the paper is set, what to say in a speaking exam, what not to say, how to extend their answers. So everything is done in detail. And we just don't give an overview to the students and leave them to it and say that, okay, now you start practicing on your own. We have divided the segments and we teach them step by step in a classroom.
So we can say it is because of the comprehensiveness,
yes,
and the detailed study, plus your guidance and mentorship, students are lucky to be placed with you or be with you, right?
Yes, that's why I always say just attend one of the demo classes and you'll see for yourself. And also we have trainers who have years of experience in teaching IELTS, and they have been trained on how to use these presentations.
So why
very
not?
well.
Students should go on and use that expertise for their own betterment and land up IELTS as soon as possible,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
So when we talk about people who are already good and they know English, so what kind of time do they take to do the preparation?
See, it takes about 40 working days for them to complete the syllabus. What we do is when a child enrolls with us, we give them a student's progress checklist. It contains the syllabus and all the topics that are covered in the classroom. So whenever a topic is done in the classroom, they put a tick on the student's checklist. And by the end of it, they know what all they have covered and what all is left. What happens is sometimes a student misses a class or a few classes, and the trainer and the student themselves don't know what all topics the student has missed, and with having missed those classes they go and give the exam. So to avoid that situation, when they have a checklist, they know exactly the topics that are missing and they can finish those before they give the exam.
That is an incredible way to keep a check of
Yes.
what's happening and what has been left.
Yes.
Perfect.
So it takes about 40 days to complete that syllabus.
Okay.
And after that, if a student is very good, they're mostly ready to go and give the exam.
So you can say 40 days is a good time to go get the exam done.
Yes, for students who are very good.
Yeah.
And for other students, what happens is then after the syllabus is done, then the error correction starts, which takes sometimes around 15 days or a month, depending on the level of the students. And for students who are good at English, even if they have been with us for a certain amount of time and they feel that they're ready to give the exam, we don't leave anything to chance.
Okay.
We have an IELTS exam simulation test. What that test includes is it is it is an exam like the real exam and taken in exam conditions.
Okay.
After a student gives that test, we create a digital portfolio in which we give feedback to the student based on each module and the segments in the module. So if we give them a green signal that okay, you got a good band score and you know everything, you are ready to go and give the exam, then they can go and give it. Otherwise, based on the feedback given in the IELTS exam simulation test report, then the students also know, okay, I need a few more days, I need to practice these elements and then go for the exam.
I'm sure feedbacks just work right for students, because that is the
Yeah.
only way you can communicate about errors and edits
Yes.
and anything that is needed for betterment or to score better.
Yes, you
So-
know, sometimes, sorry to cut you, it is sometimes the students are feel that they're ready to go and give the exam. Even the trainers might feel. But when they go and give the exam, sometimes they, miss by a 0.5 band score. Why that happens is that they did not know before going to the exam that there were some parts of the test where they were faltering. And they needed those fixed. So with this exam simulation test, when they get the feedback, they know, okay, we need to work on these elements before we go and give the
So
exam.
that makes them perfectly ready, steady, and
Yes,
go
so
for the
everyone
exam.
is on the same page as to whether they are ready or not.
So you've created this kind of a platform that they, give a live kind of exam, so that when they have exam right in front of them, they don't miss a chance to crack it.
Definitely.
Yes. So when we hear these stories about students who are really not happy and satisfied with the trainings they get, and then they say that we've spent hours and we've spent months into the training and still they're not able to crack the exam, or they're not able to get the perfect score. What do you have to say about that? Why there is such a huge thing about not clearing IELTS exam?
See, a lot of students come to us and say that we spent months and months at IELTS centers and we were not able to crack the exam. And what is happening? Why are we made to renew our enrollments again and again? We have a very transparent system, and it is because of this only. Because when we take an IELTS appraisal, at the beginning we tell them, okay, your English, this is your language level, and this is how long it is going to take you to clear to be prepared for the IELTS exam. Right? And after that, they have the student's syllabus, which they have in the form of the checklist. So, they get a hang of the way we teach things in class. So by the end of it, if they've spent a month with us, they know exactly how long they will take to complete the remaining
So you
syllabus.
quantify the results.
Yes.
Keep quantifying it so that they know.
So they know what is happening. And after that, after they've because they can't go and give the exam till they've done the curriculum.
Full thing.
Right? So when they complete the syllabus, after that they give the IELTS exam simulation tests, which tells them where they stand. Right? So there is no ambiguity. There is no, our motto is to get the students to sit for an IELTS exam as soon as possible. We don't like to make them, renew their enrollments just for the sake of it, just like a business. We don't do that. We want them to clear it in the least amount of time with the least amount of frustration, because the longer it takes, they start forgetting things and they start getting frustrated and, fed up of studying so much. So when they give the IELTS exam simulation test, they know after the feedback, am I ready or am I not? So even if they need to renew and come to the classes for longer, they know why. So there is no, they can't, they don't tell us that, okay, you asked me to do it. It's their decision. We tell them that, this much work needs to be done. And then they take a conscious
maybe because
decision.
you've made the system so transparent that
Yes.
they clearly know where they stand and how much of more
Definitely.
preparation is needed.
Definitely. So this decision to enroll and extend their enrollment and delay booking the test, it comes from them.
Okay.
When they are ready, we don't ask them to renew anything. We get their test book and send them away. Because that is the idea. We don't want them staying for longer.
And that is a great way of assessing the kind of preparation they have
Yes.
made and actually choosing to get in there or not.
Yes.
So what about the students who are not really good, and they need a lot of practice and writing and speaking and everything? What do you do about them?
See, a majority of the students that we get in Punjab especially are not very good at English because of the exposure, and it's not really spoken at home for a lot of students. So what we do is that we've developed an English language program.
Okay.
And it includes grammar classes and spoken English curriculum. So what we do is we give them 1 hour of free grammar and spoken classes every day. It is a part of the curriculum that we have designed for IELTS. What happens is when the students attend these classes, when they sit in a class that teaches them grammar and spoken English aspects, their language improves. So in a speaking mode, when they do the speaking IELTS module in a classroom, the feedback that they are supposed to get becomes easy. It becomes easier for the trainer to give them feedback, because sometimes, when they make mistakes in a speaking test or when they write, it becomes difficult to give them a feedback at that moment,
Same
because
moment.
sometimes a lot of background knowledge is needed and a lot of detailed instruction has to be given to give them a feedback as to why they're making those mistakes. So if that is covered in a grammar and a spoken English class, then they can stop making those errors in a speaking and a written test when they give in the classroom as well. So overall their language improves.
So we can say you're polishing the basics also.
Yes.
With that, you're making them prepare for IELTS classes.
Definitely.
So once the basics are polished, they're automatically ready to give the
to
exam.
give the
right?
exams. Yes, see, the IELTS exam has 2 segments. It is one is the strategies, which we teach them in the IELTS classroom, which is how to solve the exam in the given time, because it's like there is a lot of time related strategies and a lot of steps that are needed to be followed to give the exam. And the other aspect is the language. So a student who's good at language does not need to need a lot of language training. But if a student is not good, then for those students we have those grammar and spoken English classes, and then overall holistically they the development happens and they become ready to give the IELTS exam.
The exam. So what about the myths? We've heard many myths around the preparation and then getting to clear the exam. We've heard many things about students don't clear it and they spend hours into it and months into it. So what about these myths? How do we burst them?
See, I'll take up the myths related to writing first. There are a lot of the myths exist because there is a lot of misinformation that floats, especially on social media. So one myth which I've noticed students when they enroll and when they're new with us, they also make this mistake, is to learn complex lists of vocabulary for spoken, for the speaking and writing test of IELTS. So what happens is, if you open social media and you type in IELTS, you'll see a lot of these lists floating around where they tell you a better way of saying a particular word. Right? So very hungry, you can say famished, and those kind of lists you'll get. What happens is when the students start learning those lists of words, they don't know which context the words need to be used in. And there are a lot of things like collocations which need to be checked, right, when you learn a new word. And there are some synonyms which are not usable in every different context. So for example, in the IELTS classroom only we did recently, that the question said, in the interest of road safety. Now the word interest, what the student did was we asked them to Google synonyms. So when they Googled, the loose synonyms of interest was something enjoyable or something that you like, a hobby. And now that word, that synonym cannot be used in this context because they're talking about interest of road safety. So it is like for the benefit of road safety, right? So out of context, synonyms and words should not be learned. Right? Because what happens is students are told that if you use complex vocabulary, you will get higher
Then
marks.
you'll pass,
And then they, just start mugging up words and trying to use them everywhere. The examiners find out very quickly that, you're just forcing words into the conversation and you do know the real meaning of the words. So that is one myth. There is another myth related to IELTS. It is IELTS writing especially, that the students look at a word, again it's complex, in the band descriptors on the IELTS website. Now what that word complex means is not to use high level vocabulary and complex grammatical structures which you don't even know how to use. Instead, a complex sentence is very different from what students understand it to be. So a simple sentence is a sentence which has one idea. Like, I am a faculty trainer, right? and or I went to Delhi last week. That's one simple sentence. If you add another idea to it and say I went to Delhi last week because I had some work and I came back yesterday. So that is, if you add another idea to this, if you say that I went to Delhi last week because I had some work and I came back yesterday. Now this has three ideas amalgamated into one sentence. That is a complex sentence. In grammatical language, this is what a complex sentence is. So they feel that complex word has been given, so we have to use very high level vocabulary and try and impress the examiner. That goes against them. Instead, they need to use complex sentence structures with more than one idea.
Yeah.
So that is how they get a higher band score in writing, IELTS writing.
Sometimes students, they score the same kind of scores in reading, like over past few attempts and everything. So what do you have to say about that, scoring the same score?
See, I also get a lot of calls. The other day, one of the students started to cry because she had not caught. She had tried, she said, I've been at it for 1 year and I have been getting the same score in reading. Ma'am, can you explain to me? I would like to come and see your demo and what is happening. So, see, the thing is that how we teach in our classes is very different. There is a reason why the score is not improving. There are a lot of strategies which are involved in a reading test. So, sometimes the student comes and tells us, okay, I followed all the steps that you told me, but I still did not get the question right. And when we ask them again, did you follow the steps in sequence? Sometimes they flipped one step and that is where they get it wrong. A lot of strategies are involved. We pick up a type of question in reading and we tell them exactly where to look first, where to look second. Don't look here, don't look there. And every kind of question has a different strategy involved. So it is a matter of not getting the steps right when you're doing reading if your score is not improving. So to those students who are stuck at the same score, what I tell them is, come to us, let us do a diagnosis. We will make you sit through a reading test and we will tell you your problem areas. There is a reason why, and they're very simple mistakes that they make, because they have not been probably taught, or then ignoring those steps. That if in a particular step there's some types of questions, if they look here instead of here while they're attempting it, they will get all the answers wrong. It is to that extent, all the steps are important.
So you can say that reading is step based, and one can conquer it if they know the steps right. Depending on the types of questions, they can learn the way to crack the question if they are aware of the steps and if they use the steps right. Now, what about speaking? People are really scared of cracking speaking exam. What do you have to say about that?
See, there are again a lot of myths related to speaking. What you need to understand is a lot of students don't get the score that they need because they treat the examiner like a robot. They get so nervous and they talk as if they're talking to a machine. So don't forget to smile and treat the examiner like a human being. Have a conversation. Even if you're giving a computer-based exam and your examiner is sitting in another part of the country, you're still having a video video call with an examiner who's a human being. So treat the examiner like a human being and let it be a cordial experience for the examiner as well.
So it's like maintaining a connect with the examiner, and the moment you make the connect, you can clear the exam.
Another thing the students need to understand about speaking is that there are two kinds of pauses: natural pauses and unnatural pauses, which are caused by hesitation and nervousness. So the natural pauses are like when you trying to gather your thoughts and they come naturally. So they should not worry about those pauses. Sometimes the students start speaking fast and they're terrified that if we stop or if we pause, our marks will be cut. You should let the natural pauses come, and you should work on removing the pauses which are caused by hesitation and nervousness. So try and be less nervous before you go into the speaking test, and then you will be able to lessen the unnatural pauses that come in the conversation. Another thing is that in a speaking test, the students are tested on fluency and coherence, pronunciation, vocabulary and grammar. Again, your fluency gets affected if you get very nervous and if you're hesitant. So when you go into an IELTS exam, you need to stop worrying about what people will say, how expensive the exam is, how much pressure you have. to clear the exam, and you should give it naturally. Try and answer the question that the examiner is asking you. Then you will be good with fluency. Now, coherence means that there should be a logical flow to the argument. Now, can the examiner understand what you're saying, and is there a logical flow? For example, if a student says that, okay, if a student is asked, what did you do in the morning, and they say that, okay, I got up in the morning, I ironed my clothes, I had a bath, I had my breakfast. When I was leaving the house, when I had gotten up in the morning, my alarm didn't go off on time, and my mother had called me. Okay, then I started to leave the house, and then when my mother called me in the morning, she had told me to pick up some important documents on the way. So this is not a logical flow. The examiner will get very confused. They will not be able to understand what you're saying. So learn to plan your answers and have a logical flow to the conversation. Then you will get a high band score in speaking. Another thing is, this is a myth which is related to the vocabulary, and that is that the real thing is that your vocabulary should be formal and conversational. By conversational, I mean that there are some things which you may not write which you may use in a writing test. For example, in conclusion, furthermore, those kind of linking devices which you may use in a formal writing context, but you don't use that in speaking. Now, if I talk to you, I wouldn't say in conclusion. So those kind of things should not be used in a speaking test. The student should know the difference between academic and a conversational way of talking. Another thing, when I say it should be formal, that the setting should be formal. There are a lot of students, if they ask the question, they give an answer in 1 or 2 words. Like, do you like reading books? Yes, yes. Or they just say yes, or they say, yes, I like reading books. You have not given enough substance to the examiner to mark you on. So you have to elaborate on what you're saying, instead of just giving very casual 1 or 2 word answers. So it has to be, you have to understand that you're in a formal setting, and you have to give longer answers.
So as to keep the conversation going.
Yes, and to give enough material to the examiner to mark you on.
That is when the examiner will trust the person also.
Yes.
Because when you provide information, that gives a chance to the examiner to trust the person.
Yes, and then there are a lot of things that they need to mark you on.
Yeah.
So if you're just saying yes, no, and giving very short answers,
there is no reason to mark.
And then it gives the idea to the examiner that you're not very comfortable using the language. That's why you're using very short sentences.
You've always scored a perfect 9 in listening. So you may like to, share those tips with our students, so that they can also score a 9 and, crack the IELTS exam.
There are some tips that I like to give the students all the time. One of them is that they should start listening to podcasts.
Okay.
A lot of students come to us and say that we watch a lot of English movies and series with all the OTT platforms that have come up recently. But that doesn't solve the problem. That is the first step. When you look at a visual, even if you can't understand what they're saying, your mind can register and try and figure out what is happening in the visual clip, because of the visuals that you see. So now when they go into a listening test, there are no visuals. So if they can't understand what is happening, they can't judge through a visual context. So what they should start doing is they should start listening to podcasts. IELTS recommends that you should listen to national radio stations from Australia, New Zealand, England, America and Canada.
Okay.
But before that, I always say start listening to podcasts that interest you, because you will get bored. Right? So listen to podcasts in which one person is speaking and in which 2 people are speaking, because that is how you will hear the texts being, the conversations being done in a listening test.
So that is similar to the listening portion of
Yes.
IELTS. And if we cut out the visuals, they have to put more effort into understanding. Hence, they can, improve their listening.
Definitely. Another part of the brain is exercised when you listen and try and register what is being said. So you should train that aspect and train that part of the brain and get used to listening and noting down information. And then, when you hear 2 people talking over a podcast, you realize that some information is given by some person, one person, and it may be, continued or contradicted by the other person. So you get used to listening to 2 people talking.
So this is how students can do better in listening.
Yes, definitely. They can and when they get used to using synonyms and paraphrases in reading and writing, we teach them how to do it. That helps them in a listening exam as well. For example, if in the question it is problem word is given, when they hear the audio, maybe difficulty word would be used. So they can recognize, they are able to recognize that okay, problem and difficulty is the same, is a synonym, they are synonyms, and that will help them get a better score. So when they practice those synonyms and paraphrases in reading and writing, it reflects on their listening score as well.
So we can say that listening can get better through podcasts and listening to radios and cutting out the visuals out of the scenes, so that more emphasis is put on listening and
Yes.
not looking at the
Things.
visuals. Yeah.
And when they look at, when they eventually, once they get used to listening to podcasts, when they go on to listen to national radio stations, there they get news from those countries, and that helps them develop their answers in the speaking and writing test as well. So it is a win-win situation.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for being there with us today. I'm sure students will benefit from tips and techniques you've shared, and they'll be able to crack the exam. For any queries, you can contact on the number given below. Ma'am is always there for help and support. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me, ma'am.